Hello and welcome to part 4 of the series of tutorials for building the app that I call City Spell. This is also the first one in stage 2. So I got, of course, the point where we got to in stage 1, and the last thing in stage 1 was to position those prefabs, which we call single treasure, name them, call them single treasure 1 through 5, and there was a table at the end of stage 1 that tells you where to position them, this one here, and so on. Each one has their own position. And of course, those are temporary. They're rather easy. They're made so when we test the game, it'll be, not that hard to find them, so we can test if we can actually go to the end of the game, to the win scene. And that brings us to stage 2. And stage 2, we start from stage 1. I'm reminding you that at any point to test, to roam through the city, we can disable the OVR player controller and enable the FPS controller, which we brought in on stage 1, as long as we remember to do mobile input menu disable to test walking through it. So I can, at any point, I can disable the OVR player controller, enable the FPS controller that we brought in, which is basically like a first-person walker. And before we even go to building for the quest, I can roam through the city in simulation. And if I know where I am, I can even look for to see if I can find the treasures and so on. For right now, I'm going to stop. Disable the FPS controller. Remember, it needs to be, if it says enable, that means it's been disabled. Mobile input needs to be disabled for this one to work. And I'm going to re-enable the OVR player controller, which of course is the 3-camera device for Quest. Then for the actual steps. The next thing we're going to build is the wand. And the wand is held in the left hand. And of course, anyone who wants to later on can switch it to the right hand. It tells us to unfold the OVR player controller till we get to the left hand anchor. So OVR player controller, unfold, unfold, unfold. Here is the left hand anchor. Let me clear all of these. Then it tells you to find in the teacher's assets, witches and wizards assets pack, prefab wand 7 and drag it as a child to left hand anchor. So now it's a sibling, not a child, of left controller anchor. So let's find it. Project, city assets, witches and wizards, prefab, and scrolling down I can find wand 7. It's a wonderful package. I'm just using a very small part of it. And I'm going to drag it to be a child of left hand anchor. So as it says, it is now a sibling of left controller anchor. And here's wand 7. If I double click to get close to it, you can see that, I can roam around it and see what it looks like. And this, of course, will be attached to the left hand. The next step is to make sure that it has the right position. It says also to unpack it because we're going to introduce quite a few changes to it. So it is a prefab, but I'm going to right-click prefab, unpack, or unpack completely, either or, and it becomes just a regular object. Since we're not going to have more than one of them, there's no real reason for it to be a prefab, and it's got a lot of different little parts in it, which we're going to also add a lot more to. This is a big part of stage 2, is building it. And we're going to give it the following settings: 0, 0, 0.41. So I'm resetting. 0, 0, 0.41. The idea is that we're giving it a little Z so it looks like it's coming, so it's held by the handle and coming out of my hand. As far as rotation, -90 on the Y, so it points forward instead of like sideways, and its scale is going to be basically half of what it is right now because it's way too big. So scale half on all dimensions, and y, I believe it's negative 90. So if I look at it from above, it looks like it is pointing, let me turn off the gizmos, it is pointing forward from wherever I am. Right now, pointing at this wall. Right now, we're basically looking at the back of the handle. We're going to add a box collider to it, which is basically, instead of adding like a mesh collider, which will be its own shape, it's very customary in gaming to add a box collider so it's easier to collide with it. So we're going to add a box collider. We're going to check that it's a trigger, because the idea with this collider is that we don't want to hit things with it or push things with it. We just want to trigger a catch. With it, it's not going to move anything, just indicate that we touched it. So we're going to add a box collider, check the box is trigger, and give it these parameters. Let me move this a little bit so I can see both on the screen. So again, 1.7, add component, box collider. Check is trigger, and the other ones are going to be 0.3. You'll see where I'm getting with this, why those were chosen. 0.3, 0, 0 as far as center, and size 1.4, 0.15, and 0.15. Here's the idea. When I get close to it, and I pretend as if I'm going to edit, which shows its boundaries, you will see that this is, see how I, oh, not 0.5, 0.15. Here's the idea. I actually created kind of like a little rectangular box around the wand, and anything that touches this box will indicate a collision with a box instead of its own very unique shape. At this point, let me bring this back so it's easier to read. So now that we're going to work mostly on the wand, it'll help not to be distracted by anything else. So temporarily turn off the whole city, the plane, and the treasures. This will make it easier, I'm reading from step 5, to edit the wand. In the scene, double click on the wand to zoom in. So let's, in other words, make our job easier to build. I am going to take this plane and turn it off. Take the whole city and turn it off, and take those treasures and turn them off. So right now, if I double click on wand 7, I can see it nice and separated from everything else, so we can work on it. Step number 6, in wand 7, as a child, it already has 4 children. If we open it up, it has already 1, 2, 3, 4 children for all its different parts. We're going to add a spotlight, because what I want, we're going to eventually be very much in the dark. I want it to look like there's a spotlight coming out of the wand, kind of like a flashlight. And to do that, we're going to give it the following parameters. Don't forget to change render mode to important. So wand 7, right click, light. What kind of light? Spotlight. And we're going to give it all these parameters from the screenshot. Position 0.9 on the X, 0, 0 on Y and Z, rotation 90 on the on Y, so it points forward. Scale 111. It's a spotlight. Its range is going to be 20, so it shines 20 meters away from it. Its spot angle is going to be 30. I didn't change that. I made it relatively yellow, although we can later on change the color. It's going to be real time. Its indirect multiplier will be 0, which will get rid of that warning. It's not going to cast any shadows. Its intensity is going to be 1, and its render mode is going to be important. Let me try to show what this will do. See, there's like a light mounted at the end here, and if I turn on my gizmos, I can see if I look at it from above that it's shining forward. The icon looks like it's shining, looking back, but it's actually shining forward on anything. If, for instance, if I turn on the city right now, it's basically shining on the wall in front of me. But I'm going to turn off the city. Later on, if we find that this is too little light or too much light, so when I walk around, it's going to act as my wand, but also as my flashlight. I think I made all of this. And then we're adding a sixth child, because that was the fifth one. As a sixth child, we're going to add a point light. I want also, since again, there's going to be a lot of darkness around us, to have a point light that belongs to the one that shines on the one that illuminates the fact that it's very shiny and so on. This is just for beauty. So right click, light, point light. Where's this point light going to be? -0.22, sorry, negative 0.22 on the X. So it's a little to the side. 0.176 on the Y, Z0, no rotation, scale 111, a point light with a range of 1.8. I don't want it to shine too far. It's basically just to illuminate the wand itself. Its color is going to be rather like, magenta, something like this. Its intensity and its indirect multiplier, I can actually make the indirect multiplier 0, it doesn't matter. And no shadows and important. No shadows and important. Let's see if we can illustrate what this guy will do. If I turn off the gizmos and I look at this in full rendering, if I turn it on and off, I don't know if you can see it. You can look at this, for instance, when there's total darkness around, it'll make a lot of difference. But it's basically to make sure that I can always see it in the dark. So it's like a light that shines on it inside itself, that shines on itself. The next thing, which is step number 8, as a 7th child, so we already have 6, we're going to add an empty game object, which is going to be called the gem indicator container. And it's going to have a reset transform, which means compared to its parent, the wand, it's going to be at 0, 0, 0. So wand 7, empty game object, and making sure that it's completely reset. Now, what's the idea? Of course, let me copy the name. When we look for all those gems, every time that we catch one of them, try to copy it. Every time that we catch one of them, a gem is going to illuminate on the handle of our wand, telling us how many we caught. So if we see 1, that means we got 1, and we got 4 to go, and so on. So gem indicator container. That's going to contain all 5 of them. They're basically going to be little miniatures of the gems that we already used. We're going to find inside the teacher's bag sets, gems, prefabs, gem 8, which we already used. We're going to grab and drag it as a child to this indicator. That's going to be the first one. We're going to unpack prefab because we're going to do a lot of things to it, and going to call it gem indicator 1. Like I said, we're going to end up with 5 of them. So gem indicator container, we're going to go to the teacher's assets, sets gems, prefabs, gems red, gem 08, and drag it to be a child of the gem indicator container. Not below, not above, a child. Of course, now it's huge. We're going to, first of all, right click, and prefab and unpack. So anything we do to it is not going to affect the other gems that we use as treasures. And then we're going to give it the following transform. See how small we're making it? Here's the idea. We're going to give it, I'm resetting, negative 0.85, which is going to bring it back because right now X is our front back because we have the whole wand rotated 90 degrees. And Y 0.072. It's just a little above. There's no rotation on either axis, but there's 72, not 77. But it's being scaled to 0.07. See how huge it is right now? I'm going to make it much smaller, 0.07. What does that mean? That this gem, see where it is right now? If I look at it from above, it's on pretty much like the handle of the wand, and it makes room for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. If I turn it around, this is what it's going to look like when I catch one of them. Instead of the treasure that I, caught, I'm going to get like a little badge, like, you caught one of those indicators. But before we do, we also want it also to have its own light. Inside Gem Indicator 1, as a child, and okay, we're going to call this one, we're going to change its name to Gem Indicator 1. Gem Indicator 1, and inside of it, this is the gem itself, we're going to add a point light. Again, something that, like its own light that shines on itself, making it always like, nice and shiny. Don't forget render mode important, and we're going to give it these settings. Let me zoom in a little bit because it's a little too small. Okay, so this is the light inside one single gem. So it's a point light. It's going to be Y 0.56, in other words, a little above it, its parent. See how it puts it a little above its parent? Everything else is kind of default. It's going to have a nice golden color to it. Its mode is going to be real time. I don't need to change anything else here other than no shadows and important. Again, if I get close enough to it, the range needs to be also very small, 0.2, because that's what it's meant for. So if I get really, really, really close and I turn this point light on and off, you can see what it's for. So it looks not only like I have a gem, but that gem is like shining. And together they will make one indicator. Once I got that and it looks right, and I'm going to look at it from, above and below and so on, I'm going to look at it from the side. Here's my gem indicator, and with a light on, and so on. Now I got one nice gem indicator that can become a prefab, which is what the next step is. So I'm finding my prefabs. I am turning gem indicator itself into a prefab, as the instructions say. Turn gem indicator into a prefab. Make a prefabs folder if you don't have one yet. We should have one for the created for the single treasure. We're going to duplicate Gem Indicator 1 4 more times, so there's a total of 5. We're going to name them. That should sound familiar. Gem Indicator 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they will all have exactly the same transform, except for the X position that's going to place them with little, spaces between them on the handle of the wand. I think this will be a great place to stop tutorial number 1, and between this tutorial number 4, only it's the beginning of it's the first part of stage 2. So this is tutorial number 4. I'm stopping it, and between now and coming back for number 5, you should duplicate those gem indicators and give them the correct X position.